I want to jump right in and welcome my great mentor coaching client, Donalisa Stinyard. Welcome.
Thanks, Jeffrey. Thank you very much.
Yeah, it's great having you on the show. And it's funny because when we've been coaching, well, we started coaching, we just started talking about this before we launched the show back. We started like late 2016, really started getting some momentum early 2017, worked for pretty much most of that year. And then you kind of like went off on your own, and then we've stayed in touch in between then. And I've seen you evolve, which is, part of your business, evolution, self-coaching, right? Evolution coaching. But we'll get to that in a second. But I'm excited to kind of share with people kind of where you started off and kind of where you've come from there, because you've been doing this full time. And it's been work, and you've really gone in the scenes, in the trenches, so to speak, doing the right types of work to get yourself out there. So if we were to start us off, think about kind of where were you when you came to me, and where were you at, and like what did you need help with? Start us off from that standpoint.
So I would say that when I got to you, I was extremely frustrated. We had just relocated cities, and we moved to a bigger city. So I thought, wow, this is going to be really great. My business is going to start booming. But what I realized when I got there was I didn't know anybody. And so I was just kind of taking off on my business. And I had kind of, tried to do some networking things myself. I kind of my message wasn't still very niched yet. I don't think I was niched yet at the time that you and I came along, or I think I had barely just kind of been niched. And so by the time you got me, I was frustrated, starting to get burned out. And it was really working with you that I was able to get clarity on, who I wanted to work with, what was my message. And really starting to get the momentum and that ball rolling to creating my own business.
Yeah. Can you talk a little bit more about like the specific frustrations? And I know obviously the frustrations of, not having your message and things like that, but can you dive into it if you can remember, because it's so far long ago, right? But because I really feel like it, as the coaches listen to this too, if anything, it validates kind of where they're at.
Okay.
Talk about more of those frustrations, because those are some real things that a lot of coaches face when they're starting off.
Yeah, I think the biggest one is most of us that have gone into coaching and that are really looking to kind of step out on our own in our own business. The big piece behind that is you finally are going to be able to do what you want to do, when you want to do it, how you want to do it. I mean, it's this kind of whole utopia kind of feeling, right? And you have such great expectations. Oh, I'm going to step out and I'm going to get clients and all of this kind of stuff. And what really happens is it's the furthest thing from that, right? I mean, in the big scheme of things, coaching and actually coaching clients is really kind of the last thing that you're doing, because you're busy setting up all of those business pieces. And some of that frustration is you aren't exactly sure what you should be doing. What are those important components? The other thing is when you kind of figure out what you should be doing, there's so much noise out there, so many different processes that you can grab onto that it gets kind of overwhelming. If you follow this person, do this. If this person tells you do a 30-minute session, no, this person tells you do an hour session, right? And so there's this mass confusion that you've got going on, and you're not sure what to do.
One thing I love about you, Donalisa, is you can articulate your thoughts so clearly and so well. Like you do such a great job explaining that. I remember early on, especially when I started helping you figure out, who you're helping with what specifically, you could articulate it so well. It was just a matter of how do we kind of translate that into just a summary of that version, right?
Right.
But what you said right there is I think that's the biggest thing. There's so much information out there, and it doesn't mean one person's right, one person's wrong.
Right.
It just means there's a lot of different ways of doing things. And especially when you're starting off, you don't necessarily have the confidence to say, oh, I'm going to pick this direction. it's like we try this and it doesn't work because mainly we haven't done it long enough or we're not good at it. So I try this and I keep zigzagging everywhere. What allowed you to start going in a direction and even like deciding on me as an example, because there's a lot of other people out there. So what allowed you to start saying, okay, I'm going to talk to this guy, Jeff, and I'm going to start moving in this direction? What was helpful with that for you?
Yeah, I think it's kind of putting that stake in the ground, right? It's saying, okay, there's all of these voices, and what you said is true. None of them are better than the other or more right than the other or whatever. There's just a lot of traffic out there, especially for new coaches. I think as a new coach, you're kind of I hate to say it, kind of an easy target, because you want clients, you want to build that business, right? And you want to be successful. You want to leave that full-time job and become a coach full-time, right? And so I think it was finding that person, an authentic person, somebody that I believe was truly wanted to help me, which when I listened to you and I listened to your message, and I think you were doing calls at the time, not video. I was like, yeah, this is someone I can put my stake in the ground with and say, I'm going to listen. He's been there. He's done that. You've built a business. And so committing to one way to do something. And I think that's the most successful thing, is making that commitment and putting that stake in the ground. And for me, listening to you, and hearing your message and everything that you were giving of yourself and your business, I wanted to put my stake in the ground with you.
Well, thank you for that. And that you did, and that's what I love is my most successful mentoring clients are the ones that say, yeah, I'm putting faith in you and trust in you, and I'm going to listen to what you said,
right,
to what you say in your mentoring. And you did that. So now we said, okay, let's help you figure out your message, and let's start narrowing things down and getting you focused. Talk about the evolution of that, because where you are now, and if I pull up your website, right, helping millennial women find their purpose, passion, and potential and create a life that means something to them on their terms. That wasn't exactly what we came up with to start. It was kind of right, some version of that, but obviously over the last 2 years plus, there's been an evolution of your message. Can you start to talk about that from where we got to and then how it's evolved?
Yeah. Again, I think it's putting the stake in the ground, right? You can't, if you don't know where you are and you don't make a stand where you're at, then there's nowhere for you to evolve to, right? So it was really being committed and saying, okay, right now in this moment, this is the message that I can build on, right? We all know as entrepreneurs that, and as I'm sure you've shared many, many times, that where you are today is not where you started out. In fact, if I remember correctly, you did personal training in the very, very beginning, right? And now you're a coach helping coaches, right? And so there's this whole evolution. And I think for me, that was working with you, putting that stake in the ground, getting that message that resonated with me in that moment, and using that as my platform to continue to build my business and continue to evolve. And I think it's as you get out there and network and you start meeting those people that are your ideal clients, and just your growth as a person and an entrepreneur, that was what helped me to grow my message. In fact, I'm even right now in a season of growth again, and really getting more honed in and speaking to that niche market that I'm looking at.
Yeah, and I want to talk more about that in a second.
Yeah.
Before we get to that, can you talk about the challenges or the realities of the challenges along the way? You've been doing this more than 2 years now, and you're still in the game, and you're still consistent as you can be with it, and
Right.
talk about it's like, because obviously when we were mentoring together, we had that connection, and then afterwards it's like every so often, hey, Donalisa, what's up? Just checking in, right? How are you doing? What's going on? I love you because you always give me this nice, long, juicy, detailed updates, so it's great because it's not just like, oh, I'm doing well. And I'm like, and I always saw that no matter this is going well and maybe here's a challenge, but you always fought through things and you never let things become roadblocks that just stopped you dead in your tracks. Can you talk about some of this as specifically as you can, some of the biggest challenges along the way?
Yeah, I know for me, so some of it was, just like logistics, like geographics, right? I mean, in the 3 years that I've had my business, we ended up moving twice. And so, understanding that there's a process when you get to your new location, especially when you're somewhere where nobody knows you, right? So you're kind of, I spent 2 years building my business in Springfield, Missouri, and then we ended up moving here to Denton, Texas. So I had to go back to the drawing board, right? So there was a little bit of frustration in that. However, everything that I learned in that 2 years of building my network and getting out and communicating my message has made it a lot easier for me to get involved here in this community, where it's taken me less time to get a speaking engagement. And just recently, my husband went to an event, and they were like, "Oh, you must be Donalisa Stinyard's husband. Oh, she does Evolution Youth Coaching." So, and I've been here less than a year, and my name is already getting out there. And so I think it's perseverance. It's how bad do you want to be a coach? How bad do you want to be a coach full time? And are you willing to give it your all, even when you feel like the world is working against you? Nobody knows you. Maybe you've put your message out there and nobody's you're not attracting anybody. And it's understanding that that's okay. Step back, reconfigure it, change it. It's not written in stone, and keep engaging and keep moving forward, because somebody out there is waiting to hear your message.
So true. So
Yeah.
true. And what's impressive is, I mean, I think it's at some point everyone's moved in their life or moved a few times, and we know how consuming that can be. What's impressive to me is that over that 3-year, that time frame, you've moved twice, which is essentially every year you moved. If you were to space it out evenly, which I'm sure wasn't evenly spaced necessarily, and that in and of itself can just knock you out for, a whole quarter, like 3 months of preparing and then moving and then settling in. And I know when I moved into houses, it's been a year before I still have boxes somewhere,
Yeah.
And what are some of the biggest things that you found that's helped you with those? Those are major transitions, especially for coaches who, whether it's actually a move like that or a divorce or just dealing with their kids every day, staying home from school sick or whatever those transitions are. What have you found has helped you keep going, especially with all that turmoil?
So I think the first one is learning to, it's making a commitment to yourself and honoring that commitment. So in the midst of this moving, I had started a blog, and I blog once a week. And I told myself that even through the move that I would continue to blog, because I knew that maybe my social media presence wasn't going to be as robust as I wanted it to be in that season of transition. But I would, if nothing else, I would keep the blog going. And I made that weekly commitment to myself. Were all of the blog posts great during that time? Maybe not, but that's okay. It was about giving myself some grace in the midst of all that transition. So I would say definitely make a plan, like, assess where your business is at in whatever's, transition, whether it's a divorce or a move or, a marriage or whatever that is. And then make a decision or make a plan on how are you going to continue? What pieces do you want to continue? Are you able to continue during that transition? And make that commitment to yourself and know that maybe it's not 100%, but it's something that keeps your business moving and it keeps you engaged in that business piece.
Yeah. And so for you, that's your Wow Wednesday, correct?
Yes.
That's your blog that you have?
Yes. Words of wisdom every Wednesday.
Yeah, it's awesome. So,
Yeah.
so I'll actually bring your website up so people can actually check that out. But evolutionucoaching.com. So it's right on the screen there. So check it out. She's got a great website, and that's where you see the Wow Wednesday. And if you start to scroll through that, the older posts, you can see the consistency that you've had. And as you know, as when I was my mentoring clients, I like to help them have some type of a weekly event, whether it's a live event like this, like a call, or even a weekly blog, right? It's something that's consistent, that not only can get you out in front of new people, but also can keep your warm audience warm and nurture them. What value, because you already started to answer that, the value that you found in your business, but what value have you found that to be in your business? Having that consistent weekly something that you're putting out there, creating that education.
So one, I think it's, I enjoy doing it because it helps me to be a better writer, but the value I think that it brings to my, to the people that follow me or to my clients is I look at it just kind of like this resource. It's a video, or it's a free resource, right? So it's, you may not be on here right now listening to this video, but it's in your library and somebody can come back and get it. And so for me, it's as I continue to meet people and I continue to step out, it's an opportunity for me to be able to speak to those individuals that haven't been along for the whole journey, and I have a reference or a point of reference to give them and say, hey, listen, go check out this blog post, or I talked about that on a Wow Wednesday, here's the link, check it out. So it's providing a value to your clients because you're giving them a resource.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Tell us, now we got your website up there, tell us a little bit about what you do, I read it already, but who you help with what specifically, and just talk about kind of the framework of your business.
Yeah, so it took me a while to get to this, and it's really about helping millennial women create a life that means something to them on their terms. And, what that means is helping them take responsibility for their dreams and desires, and then working through any kind of obstacles that they've put in their own way, right? We know as coaches that a lot of times the stuff that we come up against is the stuff that we've made up ourselves, right? It's our story. So really helping them to move through those blocks that prevent them from living a life that they want on their terms. And then really being intentional about the steps that they take in their lives. People, I think the biggest thing, I saw a sign one time that says, where is your life leading you? And I looked at that and I thought, no, it's where am I leading my life? It's being intentional about the steps that I want to take to get to the next, whatever that is that I want, right? And so really helping them to be intentional in what they're doing and really honoring who they are in that process.
Yeah, and that's a big piece for that, is honoring who they are.
Mm-hmm.
What have you found, where have you found this demographic? How have you found the best ways to kind of get in front of them and start to build your audience and get the clientele?
That's been the really difficult part.
Right? Marketing.
Right. That's always the difficult part. So I know for, again, when we moved here, there's 2 universities here that are right here in Denton. One of them is a women's specific university. I was extremely intentional about making contact with, they have a Center for Women in Business. So I made contact with the executive director. That's how I got speaking engagements. I just recently have asked somebody to do my social media for a couple of months so that I could engage more people, more of that demographic kind of on Instagram, really in the process of establishing myself kind of as a subject matter expert for this clientele, for this demographic. And, really working to, network with people that can kind of connect me to that demographic.
Yeah. And I think that's always the challenge of our business, right? Is how do we get ourselves in front of our audience, And at the end of the day, and that's what I've always seen with you is it's you're getting out there, you're networking with people, you're trying to set up speaking engagements, right? And you do it one person at a time, and there's really no sexy way of doing it or saying it. Like that's the reality of our business and whether it's one person at a time or 100 at a time, we prefer the latter, but it does take that work. As we start to wrap this up, tell me a little bit more, share with people the value for you in our work with the mentor coaching. Because obviously I believe in that and I know how it helps people, but like, where did it help you the most? Because I know you came very frustrated and didn't have that direction, but where was the value for you?
So the value for me was, I think it was you really helped me to, again, kind of put my stake in the ground on the millennial women. Because I think when I first came to you, it was, women like 20 to 40 and, and so spending the time with you really helped me to narrow it down and be committed, because that's really hard, right? Because and that was something else that you shared. Listen, I know it sounds like you're narrowing the amount of people that you're talking to, but you're being intentional about who you're talking to. You want those people to be listening to you, right? So really giving me an opportunity to nail that down. And then I think we redid a bunch of my website to kind of make sure that front piece, when they got on there, that was exactly what they saw. There was no question about who I helped and what I helped them to do. So the value really came along in that. And then I think the other thing too was, and from our conversations, I'm an extremely transparent person. If I am frustrated and upset and overwhelmed and pissed off or whatever it is, you got to hear about that. And it was awesome to have somebody that was in my corner, that had been there, done that, got the t-shirt and was helping me to be there, do that, and to kind of grab that t-shirt. Always supportive, always with ideas, always checking in to make sure that, this is what do you want from me next? I know, and you would always say, I know kind of what's next in the pipeline, but I want to know, is this what you want to do? So lots of value in really starting to create that foundation for my business that I didn't have before you came along.